Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we're talking about how there are different insiders that are hyping up the Game Awards 2024 show, suggesting that there could be some exciting announcements on the way that may even include something from Nintendo. Now, what might a Nintendo announcement be? Could it be something to do with Metroid Prime 4, as we've been discussing over the last few weeks? Might it be about something else that's also looming? That's what we're diving into today, as potentially our last Game Awards discussion before the show on December 12th, later this week. But before going forward, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. So over the last few weeks, I've been talking about different updates when it comes to the Metroid Prime conversation. Essentially, what's been going on is that there's this rising belief that Metroid Prime 4 may show up in the Game Awards. Now, we already know that it's been nominated for Most Anticipated Game, but when it was announced that it was up for Most Anticipated Game, Nintendo then immediately updated the Metroid website to include Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. The timing is curious. They could have updated it at any point this year or even next year, but they decided to do it the moment Prime 4 was announced as a Most Anticipated Game nomination. But then it goes beyond that, because also recently, we've gotten an announcement of an official collaboration for the Metroid Prime 1 through 3 visual retrospective art book coming out next summer. And so, official Metroid Prime things are happening right now. They appear to be signs of a bigger marketing plan for Metroid Prime 4 sometime next year. And while it isn't the first time we've speculated on the possibility of Metroid showing up at the show, this time around, given that Prime 4 is slated for 2025, the odds seem to be higher than ever before. Now, whenever we have these conversations, there are always people who seem to forget that Nintendo has pretty consistently had some level of announcement at the award show. Now, it hasn't happened every time, but almost every single time there has been some kind of announcement. In some cases, the announcement hasn't been as exciting as, say for example, Metroid Prime 4 news. Sometimes it's just an announcement of different N64 games coming to Nintendo Switch Online. But then other times it might be a DLC trailer for Fire Emblem Engage, or an announcement of Bayonetta 1, 2, and 3 coming to Nintendo Switch, or a new character in Smash Bros., or new footage for Breath of the Wild, something that's happened multiple times, the same for Smash as well. So there is a history of Game Award announcements from Nintendo, but it isn't consistently the biggest, most hyped thing. Now, in relation to Breath of the Wild, I do think it's worth mentioning that there is a lot of conversation about how Metroid Prime 4 may be in a similar position as Breath of the Wild back then. A big title being made for the current platform that may also be a cross-generation title, and so marketing this particular game will have extra benefit because not only is it marketing the game for your current platform, but also it's setting things up a little bit more for your future platform. But that is just the Metroid angle. It isn't necessarily Metroid that's going to be at the award show. And we'll speak on those possibilities a little bit later, but first what I want to focus on is what the title of the video is suggesting. How there are different insiders hyping up this award show. So firstly, I will bring up Andy Robinson, the owner of Video Games Chronicle. Here says, expecting a very big Game Awards next week. Fire up the hype train. Now, this is exciting, but it isn't necessarily Nintendo, although Andy Robinson has been known to speak on very Nintendo things. Of course, things across the industry overall, which sometimes includes Nintendo. But it could have to do with other exciting announcements that don't have to do with Nintendo, so I am trying to dial it back a little bit here. However, Ricardo Diaz responds to this tweet and asks, is that a guess or a hint? And Andy responds by saying, definitely not a guess. So, sounds like Andy Robinson believes that there are going to be some very big announcements at the Game Awards. Now, when reading this, I think some people might start to think maybe there could be something big Nintendo at the show, and some people might even be starting to steer in the direction of it being beyond a Metroid Prime 4 announcement, but perhaps something like the Switch 2. And we had a conversation about this about a week or so ago, and in that conversation I tried to make it clear that while I think it is certainly a small possibility, I think the more realistic expectation is that they are not going to do that. There is some precedent of consoles being announced at the award show because that's what happened with Xbox Series, but when it comes to Nintendo and you look at the types of announcements we've seen at the award show, for the most part, they don't announce whole new things at the award show. They update on things we already know about. They'll give us more footage on the already announced Breath of the Wild, or another character on the already announced Smash Bros., or DLC on the already announced Fire Emblem Engage. And that's why I think Metroid Prime 4 news is more likely. They could give us another update on the already announced and shown off Metroid Prime 4. But to show the Switch 2 for the very first time, the biggest announcement for their entire next generation, I think that's something that Nintendo will keep closer to the chest and do in their own way outside of the event. However, I also think it should be noted that we've already started to see different third-party companies very obviously start referencing the next generation console. In the case of the Yooka Playly trailer, how they included Nintendo as one of the consoles without stating it'd be for Switch 1, but clearly they're suggesting Switch 2. And they had the whole eye emoji thing, and then there's Roughly by the Riverside that said it's coming to Nintendo Switches, as in more than just the Switch 1 family, but also beyond the Switch 2. And now we have different accessory makers essentially saying that their accessories are coming to a next generation console. There are companies out there that are already referencing or clearly stating in some way that their product is coming to Switch 2. And so at the award show, there's likely going to be many games that are going to have trailers, and some of these third-party companies may make a reference in some sort of subtle way or not so subtle way that it will be a part of the Switch 2 lineup. So that may be there, but I don't expect an actual official announcement from Nintendo about the Switch 2. But Andy Robinson isn't the only insider hyping up this event. We also have Tom Henderson, the owner of Insider Gaming, saying there will be announcements at the Game Awards. Now, this isn't saying much because there's always announcements at the Game Awards, and yes, I know he's joking because this is basically like saying the sun will rise tomorrow. But these different insiders, they're not necessarily stating it's about Nintendo. But you know who is someone that if they were to speak on the award show, it would be clearly referencing Nintendo? The president of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser. Now, Doug Bowser isn't necessarily teasing that there will be announcements from Nintendo at the show, but he rarely interacts with the award show in this way, and he responded to a Game Awards tweet and said, at Jeff Keighley, assume the shoe game will be once again on point this year. This might mean nothing, but it is unusual. However, Jeff Keighley did respond to something. So when Nintendo tweeted out that they are beyond honored to announce that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond has been nominated for Most Anticipated Game at the Game Awards, are you ready for Samus's next adventure? Jeff Keighley responded to that tweet and said, congratulations. So, Jeff Keighley being the one who runs the Game Awards, it does fill me with this hopium, this greater sense of optimism that perhaps Metroid Prime 4 is going to have some news at the show. Before Metroid Prime 4 was even announced to be one of the most anticipated game nominees, Jeff Keighley had already brought up Metroid Prime 4 in particular when talking about big games coming out from Nintendo next year. I thought it was a tease of something. It might have just been a tease that Prime 4 would be up for most anticipated game, but it also might be going a bit deeper and teasing that there might be some Metroid Prime 4 news at the show. Again, we don't know. They could just be hyping things up because it's up for most anticipated game. And no, I don't think it's going to win because there's something called Grand Theft Auto also going to be there. But still, as a Nintendo fan, I see all these little things and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's going to be some big announcements. And there is a history of Nintendo announcements. And the Switch 2 is supposed to come out next year, apparently, as is Metroid Prime 4. I think there is reason to start hyping some things up. And Metroid Prime 4 might be what's shown off at the award show. We've also recently heard some rumors from Samus Hunter that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are supposed to come out soon. Prime 2 specifically in the first quarter of next year for the calendar year. And that could be something that's announced at the show. And I actually noticed one more little thing that I think is worthy of note here. So I went back to 2022 when Nintendo acknowledged that Tears of the Kingdom was up for most anticipated game at Game Awards 2022, and the tweet is extremely similar to the Metroid Prime 4 tweet. So in terms of coming from Nintendo, there isn't really anything here that's big. But I did not see Jeff Keighley respond to the Tears of the Kingdom tweet in terms of being most anticipated game. However, we've already talked about how Jeff did for the Metroid Prime 4 one. Tears of the Kingdom did not have any news at that award show. But Metroid Prime 4, well, I think it just might. But are there any other possibilities? I've talked about the Metroid angle for some time, and even the Switch 2 angle, but maybe it's not about Switch 2, which we think it's probably not, and maybe it's not about Metroid Prime 4, which is possible, but that is my bet if there's going to be anything, or just Metroid Prime stuff. There is other possibilities. Sticking to the theory based off what we've seen in the past that Nintendo's more likely to update us on games that have already been announced, looking at what we have for next year, if it's not Metroid, we know about Pokemon Legends ZA. I would say Pokemon probably won't show up here because they save these things for Pokemon Presents. But we do have Donkey Kong Country Returns HD coming out in January, and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming out in March. Now, remasters don't usually get updates at the award show. I would be more inclined to think it would be on a new game, which definitely has me steering more in the direction of Metroid. But in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles X, we already know that there's going to be new content in the game, and we had a decent amount of evidence suggesting that there's going to be a significant epilogue quest in that game, similar to the initial Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition. So they might give us an update on that. They might provide a trailer giving us a few more details on what the new content for Xenoblade Chronicles X will be. I think there's a solid chance of that instead of Metroid news. Of course, it's also possible we get more than one Nintendo announcement at the award show, because we've seen this happen before. And while I have stated that Nintendo tends to make announcements on things that we already know about at the award show, we have seen new game announcements that are published Nintendo projects that are also partner projects, such as Bayonetta Origins. So could there be something like that, a surprised Nintendo-published partner project that is announced at the award show? Certainly. What might that be? I doubt it would be another partner remaster project, and that's pretty much the kind of games we're expecting to come out for Switch 1 until Switch 2 comes out. So I can't think of much, but I'll throw out a possibility. Not that I expect this, but boy would it be exciting. Astral Chain 2, another release from Platinum Games. We think Astral Chain 2 will come eventually. Astral Chain 1 was fairly successful. There's certainly story details there that suggest that they're going to make another. They even had an Astral Chain cameo when they had the Bayonetta 3 gameplay reveal trailer. So I do think Astral Chain 2 will eventually happen, and it could be something announced at the show, but I think something of this caliber, of this scope, would probably be saved for Switch 2. Now maybe it's a cross-gen title, but I personally don't think so. However, I'm mentioning it here as a small possibility. Now I guess they could give us another trailer for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. We haven't gotten a full-on second proper trailer. There is some new footage out there, as we've discussed, that came out for Donkey Kong Country's 30th anniversary. But in terms of a proper new trailer, we haven't gotten one, and given that the game is coming out in January, it might make sense to give us another trailer on that. Now, they could do that outside of the Game Awards, but we are getting pretty close, so maybe this is when we see more on Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And as I talk it through, it seems actually a little bit more likely than what I initially casted it as. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.